Excuse me. I'm David Cohn. I work here at the CRC. I'm going to. I was asked to talk about two different things. The first is some older differences of opinion that CRC and others have about Toothpaste items, and then afterwards some sort of new items that came up. The first is that we differentiate. Some people take different positions on is what the status is of Seltzer that's made for Pesach. Seltzer, it's carbon dioxide. It can come from different places. Many of them are completely innocuous, but they can also be a byproduct of making beer and whiskey and etc. Question in Paiskim, starting about give or take 100 years ago, about when they first started developing Seltzer, whether one should be concerned about chametz that comes from Seltzer, Seltzer that comes from chametz sources. Earlier Paiskim were more concerned, later Paiskim were not as much concerned, and different hashkachas take different positions. The CRC position is we would not recommend that carbon dioxide unless it was made from a source that was not chametzdik. And other hashkachas take different positions. Some of them say it shouldn't come from chametz, but it's okay if it comes from kidneys. Others will say it's okay from every source because there's halachic basis to think that the isser of the chametz doesn't transfer into the seltzer. And everyone takes different positions. Again, our position is that you need to get it with hashkacha, which is the hashkacha will verify that in fact it was made not from chametz. Okay. And another questionable item, again, where people take different positions on. In fact, the CRC itself takes different positions on. Are things that are potentially considered not edible that you put into your mouth. That is, the three examples of that are toothpaste and mouthwash and lipstick. Those are all items that they're sort of on the border of what people consider edible or not edible. If it would be not edible, then it would be okay to use them on Pesach or if they're treif. So there are different shittas about that. And year-round, the CRC's position is that those things do not need hashkacha. Even if they come with non-kosher ingredients, we consider them to be not edible, and we allow them, all three of those. But for Pesach, we take a stricter position, and we tell people they should only use them if they know that they're free of chametz, that there's no chametz concerns. And therefore, whereas other things that are not edible, that are more obviously not edible, or don't go into your mouth, we tell people are completely okay. For these ones, we tell people they should only use them if we know them to be free of chametz. And so for toothpaste and mouthwash, pretty much you have to find someone who will be able to verify that an item has no chametz in it. Some of them come with hashkacha for Pesach. Some other ways of verifying that there's no chametz in them. And for lipstick, for the past year or two, we've had something for lipsticks and things that you put into your eyes, also eye drops that also potentially can have chametz in them. And we may even soon have for pet foods, which is you can put your ingredients in. There's a place on our website. You can just plop in all the ingredients, and it'll tell you whether those is or is not a concern for Pesach. Again, for lipsticks, it exists right now, and for the eye care items, and maybe even in time for Pesach this year, maybe for next year, to be able to do for your pet foods also. Pet foods is a little bit of a different question. Pet foods could be chametz. They could also be basa b'chalav. So we have this way to check it out to find out whether those are okay for Pesach. Okay, so those are two items that are sort of differences of opinion. Now I'm just going to mention a few things that have come up or that are a little different for this year or in general that are different. The first is we tell people that if they have mouse traps around their house, they need to ensure that they're not chametzik. And people have asked, it sounds so strange. It kills mice. So why would I be worried that this is an edible item that I should worry about that this thing is chametzik? So it turns out that there's different types of mouse traps, as you could guess. So the simplest ones are like what they call glue traps. Those are fine. There's no questions to those. But other traps that use a bait to get the mouse to come in, the mouse then eats this bait and then it dies from it. So it turns out that it used to be that bait was poisonous, as you could imagine, right? It's meant to kill the mouse, so it's poisonous. But what happened is people were worried because pets would eat from it, little kids would eat from it, and it's sitting around the house. It's supposed to catch the mouse. It could also catch your cat. So they came up with this great idea. They figured out that if you put in vitamin D into these pellets, there's different kinds of bait that you have. The vitamin D is not good for the mice, and it'll kill the mice. And actually, it has an advantage because it doesn't kill the mice right away. It kills them after a couple of days, meaning away from the trap, back in their hole wherever they came from. You don't have to deal with having a dead mouse left behind your fridge. So putting in the vitamin D took care of the mice, and it was perfect. It was harmless for people and pets, etc. So if you look at the ingredients for some of these, which we did, at some of these items that are used from mouse traps and pellets that put out to keep mice away, they're completely edible foods. I mean, you look at them, including in many of them wheat. They're just flour, just a nice piece of food which would attract the mouse to come eat from it. But in fact, and for the mouse, it'll kill the mouse, but it's totally harmless to people. It's completely edible, and that's a reason why we tell people they should think about what's in their mouse trap. Find out what's in that, what is the bait is, and then from that you'll be able to know whether you can keep it or you can't keep it on Pesach. Again, because it might be just completely edible chametz. Okay. Another thing is, people have, it's more of a work thing or like a shul thing. They'll have water coolers that are not as common in their houses. People have them in their houses as well, which has this jug of water that holds water into it, and then from that you can get hot or cold water out of it. For a long time, we've told people that if it holds cold water, if it's just cold water, they should just clean it well, and they could continue to use it. It's nice that you get a new jug. We'll talk about the jug in a second. And if it has hot water, we told them a method of how to kasher them. So two things related to that. One is that people brought up a question, which is those jugs that hold the water in them. We hear rumors that college students or people who think they're still college students use them for beer. They refill them with beer, or they make their own beer inside of them. So we looked into it. It's a little bit of a halacha question. So which case, if I have water in there on Pesach, so let me explain. After you use the water, the people take it back jug. They take it back to the company. They rinse it out and they put new water and send it to the next guy. So how do I know that I'm not getting one that had been used for beer last week or yesterday? So I'll give it just for a second. I'll talk about it, and that is the way you would kasher had it been used to hold beer is with something called milu v'irui. You would fill it up with water, let it sit there for 24 hours, empty it out, and again do it again 3 times. You do that each one for 24 hours. So that means to say is that if the person who used it for beer used it more than 3 times ago, it had milu v'irui. That's exactly what they do when they get the water back to the water company. They rinse it out, they fill it up with water, and it sits there for more than 24 hours. So had it been more than 3 people ago, it's been kashered already. So the only possibility is maybe it's the person right before me, within the last 3 people. Maybe he was the one who used it in this way with beer. So then there's another angle, which is if you figure out how much plastic there is in there, any amount of chametz that would have been absorbed into the jug would have been bottled into the water. Now, chametz on Pesach is asur b'mashu. Chametz, if it would come out on Pesach, it would be asur b'mashu. But being as it's only a suffix, or it's really far-fetched. Within the last 3 people, if somebody used it, that's only a suffix, so a suffix asur b'mashu would not be an issue. Okay, but that's an older position of ours, and you could use those water bottles. It's a nice thing to get a new one. But now, for most water coolers, we have a method. You look on our website, a way of kashering that. But that method of kashering uses water. You can imagine you use boiling water on it. So there's a new device. It's called I don't pronounce this correctly. Noam. It's a machine. Doesn't have the water jug behind it. It connects to the water pipes in your house, and it produces hot and cold water. And has this nice feature that for Shabbos it turns itself off. It turns off the feature of allowing you new water on Shabbos. So you could use it on Shabbos because it basically just holds hot water for Shabbos. And does it automatically. And so a firm person might want to have this device. And for that, our methods of kashering are not going to be effective because it involves pouring boiling water in places, and this machine is too delicate for someone to pour boiling water on top of it. So we don't recommend people kasher them. Okay, 2 more things. One is that we've long told people that cleansers are okay for Pesach, like things that you clean your counters with v'cheina. That's because they're not edible. Those are not edible items. It's become more popular that cleansers, instead of just being made from the soap-type materials that we're used to, are made partially or completely made from vinegar. Okay, there's one that's basically just a bottle of vinegar. That's all they're selling you. And the potential is that it could be the vinegar is chametz. Not as likely in the United States, but it's possible that it's chametz. And it could be that's edible. Again, it depends on the formulation. So just something to think about that some of those cleansers, we modified our wording a little bit, because some of those cleansers are in fact are more sensitive than they used to be. The traditional cleansers are all, we believe, are not edible, but these are a little not as clear as worth thinking about. Okay, and one last thing, and that is, I believe we may have already told this to people last year. I don't remember exactly, and that is, as Ashkenazim, we don't kasher glass, and we consider glass to absorb taste and not to be able to be kashered. Sfaradim, on the other hand, take the position of the mechaber that glass doesn't absorb, and so they don't work. They can use the same glass for milchiks and for fleishiks, or for Pesach and for year round. Okay, not all Sfaradim, but many Sfaradim will follow that position, and they use that. Okay, and one of the popular glass items that people use is Corelle dishes, because Corelle is made out of glass. So you could use it, then they would use it for milchiks, fleishiks, or Pesach and year round. So in fact, Rabbi Raka, who's a dayan here in the Bezdin, and he's a local Sephardic Rav in town, brought up the point that although the plate in fact is made of glass, that's the truth. It's made of glass. But the plates always have decorations on them. Okay? They all have decorations on them. Okay, those decorations are on top of the glass. Okay, and this I don't know how to describe the colors. The blue and green and yellow. Okay, those decorations are on top of the glass. They're not in the glass. They're on top. You could feel it yourself when you go there. And when we poked around to learn about what they're made out of, they're not made out of glass. So while it's true that someone who's Sephardi could use glass for milchiks and fleishiks and Pesach and year round, that would not be true for Corelle, because in fact the Corelle is not just glass; it has other things to it also. So all the rest of it would be balea. So if I use it for milchiks, I can't use it for fleishiks or kosher and treif or chametz and year round. He shouldn't be using it.